Hello and welcome to another episode of our Brothers Creed podcast, where we inspire fathers to build the blueprint for the next generation. We are the brothers Thomas, the Thomas brothers, and I'm Jared.
And I'm Ethan. And today we're going to be talking about vision. We're not going to be talking about eyesight. We're going to be talking about foresight.
The red guy from Marvel?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about vision. Why is it important to have vision in your life? I think this can go in many different ways. It can go in ways of, having vision to be able to see the consequences of your actions. It can be vision as in kind of guiding from a maybe a masculine standpoint, your family in a certain direction. Or, understanding, foreseeing needs that your family might have, your wife or your kids. I think there's a lot that could potentially go into having vision as a man, as a father, as a someone who contributes to society in a positive manner. Being able to foresee or have vision is definitely important. So this is going to be a good one. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day.
You should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it.
No retreat, no surrender.
You can't conceive of what I'm capable of.
There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
What we do in life, that goes in eternity.
So with vision, you mentioned there's lots of different types of vision. Maybe we can go through and we can talk about the different types. At least that's how I kind of organized some of my thoughts. The first type, sure. I think, is just, obvious. Vision is just the ability to see, right? The ability to see things, and I think that there's like a lot of meanings beyond that. But with seeing, and not just plainly seeing with your eyes, but I think that having vision is, can you see certain situations, the nuances in situations? Can you see threats? Do you have situational awareness? Do you see social cues? If you're talking with someone at a business brunch and they start folding their arms and stepping away from you and turning their feet away from you, that might be a clue that they want to leave. They want to go do something else, and you should probably end your little story that you've got.
I saw this thing. It was like this quote, and it's like, I'm 15 yeahs, 6 wows, 5 uh-huhs, and 10 reallys into this conversation, and this guy won't stop talking.
It's reading the ability to see social cues. That's something that I think is so important for kids to learn, especially and like the perception, and it's critically important. Some people are just totally unable to do that, and I think it's such a critical skill, especially in sales. If you're a salesman and you have the ability to read a room or read your customer when they furrow their brow when you say, when you say something that they might not agree with, or you talk about a feature that they don't like. Oh, I see you. If you heard about that feature, is that something that concerns you? Is that an aspect that you're interested in hearing more about? That seeing that vision is so critical. Having the vision to see those things. I also said, having the sense that something is off. Like being able to
discernment.
Yeah, sometimes like you talk to people who are like, they like walk into a grocery store on the wrong side of town, and they're like get this really weird vibe, and they're like, something's not right here. Almost like that sixth sense, like you're having your ability to see that, or you're having the vision to understand that something is not right, and I need to get out of the situation.
Yeah.
Or when you're in the middle of the woods and you hear,
someone
your own voice call back to you, say, "Hey, come over here," and you're like, "This is not good."
Yeah, don't respond to that.
Yeah. So that's kind of some of the things I was thinking about, just like seeing it and actually like vision. Any similar things you would add that are like that, Ethan? I know you already kind of talked about that in the intro.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely, a great kind of springboard into what vision is.
Another go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was going to say, I kind of looked into how vision pertains to, let's call it the context of masculinity. I mean, I kind of use that word loosely, I guess, because I wouldn't say that vision is a purely masculine trait. But I think it kind of refers to qualities of, we mentioned the word foresight, or I think even having a good vision is a great quality of a leader.
Yeah.
The ability to set and pursue long-term goals for yourself.
Yep.
I think it's someone that has vision is usually kind of associated with someone who's a provider or a protector for those around them. And I think some of the things that
why
having
I would say, why do you think that? Why? I don't know if I've ever thought of it like that. Like, why would you think that vision would come from the provider or protector? In what way does vision apply to that?
Yeah, no, I think when you look at it, maybe even like from like a Stone Age perspective, right? You think of it as, a man or whatever providing for his family. In our day and age, I guess that kind of looks a little bit different than fighting off, beasts and creatures. I guess those beasts and creatures are people nowadays, right? But I guess it is someone that has vision to be able to foresee potential threats for their family. And that's why I said it's not just masculine. I'm just, I think mothers can do this just as much as fathers can. But being able to perceive potential threats and having the vision to understand that and to be able to react accordingly and prevent that thing from happening. Maybe it might be you have a one of your kids that comes home from a stay at the neighbor's house. I don't know. We don't do sleepovers, but if they were over at their friend's house and your kid got home and they were actually, let me rephrase that. Let's say you went to go drop your kid off at a friend's house to spend the night. But then whenever you're there, you're like, I got to meet their parents, right? And so you go and you meet their parents. And then you get this feeling, you're just like, I don't know. I don't know if I want my kid spend the night here. So then you talk to him and say, hey, I'll come pick you up at, midnight or whatever. I'll come pick you up at 10. Something like that is, I think, the role of a protector, provider, right? To be able to foresee some of those issues whenever your children, all they see is, I want to play, I want to play, I want to play. And they get kind of blinders on to what, outside, or they don't have the experience to understand potential threats. So that's where I went with the vision.
Yeah, I think that the ability to anticipate what may or may not come to pass is kind of that vision. I think it's so, going to talk more about that, like that particular, or the vision, like that is one aspect of vision, right? Is the anticipatory of threats. And that's kind of one thing you were talking about is like, well, if my son is playing soccer in the front yard and that ball goes into the road and it's 5 o'clock and it's 5:30 or 6 o'clock and these people all the way down the street rally down the road and they don't care about any kids, I'm foreseeing the vision there that something might happen. So like anticipating those threats and like, I think that's absolutely one way that we can have vision, and also just like, hey, I have like 3 months of food storage. Does that 25-year shelf life food storage? That's I'm trying to have vision in case anticipating something that may come to pass, or maybe I might need to use that someday. Hopefully not, but better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So I think there's that anticipatory vision that you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
I think actually, I'd say that males and females have it differently, but I think that they almost have a word for it called like mother's intuition, right? For women, where like they have this innate intuition where they'll just like, oh, my child is doing this, or you have countless stories of like a mom saying, no, something's not right, or I know something's off, or I need
to go check the baby. Or,
yeah. And so they can have that vision or even that anticipatory. I mean, I don't know how many times a day I hear my wife saying to the kids, don't do this or don't do that because this might happen or that might happen. Or, when she's taking something out of the oven, she says, I'm opening the hot oven. Take a step back because she doesn't want some kid running around the kitchen and running into the oven. So it's like, I think that's 90% of what moms do is like anticipate what could happen and try to mitigate the disaster. So thankful for that anticipatory vision in the household. But going on to the next kind of version of vision that you talked about was that ability to kind of plan for the future, right? Well, it's not necessarily anticipating threats or what could come to pass, but imagining the future with imagination and wisdom. So that's that
creativity.
That's that creativity. That's that next part that you kind of touched on a little bit, but I think this is kind of the more, I would say, when people talk about vision, this is what they're talking about most of the time.
Yeah,
is this
your
ability
your vision board?
Exactly. Having a vision for your company or for your family or for your podcast or for your job or for your backyard patio or whatever it is that you're trying to work on, that is, or just for your whole life. That is what most people refer to when they talk about having that vision. And so I had a couple things that I was going to say on here about how I think people can build that vision. But before we dive into that, I wanted to see if you had anything else to add about this type of vision.
Yeah. We've talked about our experiences on our missions before, and this is something that I felt for a mission, for a church, for a service mission. You are really kind of thrust into other people's lives. You're constantly meeting with people and teaching people and meeting new people. And so kind of before this time, right, when we left when we were 19, it was everything was about me, right? High school, middle school, beforehand, it's just like everything selfishly was just about me. I only had to worry about me. It was just me. Everything I did was for me. Everything I needed to do was for me. And so it was all about my life. But when I went on my mission, it was 2 years of interacting with other people, teaching about Jesus Christ and serving whenever you could, right? Physically serving, many times from a service opportunity standpoint. But when I was introduced to so many families and people that tell you their life story, and they open up and they tell you what they might be struggling with, or you kind of get invested into their life. And I almost felt my vision, right, changing a little bit. That a lot of times I felt, not that I was, some counselor or whatever else. That wasn't really my job to counsel people. But you could kind of see their life. And, the the mom tells you something, and the brother tells you something, and the husband tells you something, and then the kids, and then and in your mind you kind of build all of these different this web of all these everybody's experiences, and you're kind of on the outside of it. And I really felt that I was able to kind of step back, and you almost get like a 30,000-foot view of some of these people's lives, and you kind of you see what makes them happy and see what their struggles are. Maybe it's substance abuse or infidelity or stealing or whatever it might be. I mean, those are just some examples of things that I ran into and people that I ran into. And a lot of times when people are in those situations, it's hard for them to see even what's around the next corner, versus how they can overcome those challenges in their life. And so, I wasn't able to save everybody and to make everybody's life perfect, but being able to step back, and I kind of see that with my kids, right? I'm able to step back and see just from a higher view what's around the next curve for my child. If they are interested in this or that or the other, and I can help kind of guide and direct them.
Yeah.
Because I have a little bit more vision of the holistic view of what's going on. And so I don't know, just kind of an interesting perception that I felt like I gained and has stuck with me.
Yeah. I like that. So talking about that vision that you have for your life, I think it's so important to have a vision. In fact, I think if it's okay, I'm gonna share my quote right now because I think it ties in well to this.
Yeah, do it.
This one's by Thomas Edison, a well-known guy. He said, "Vision without execution is delusion." So kind of interesting. So I want to talk about that execution and how you can create that vision for your life, and how you can go about doing that. So it's pretty simple. First of all, I think you need to decide what it is you value. We talk about that on a Brothers Creed podcast all the time. We talk about virtues, we talk about building your creed, we talk about your values, and how you can build that personal creed that you want to live by and that you want to model to your children, and that you can show them those values. So build that with them. If your kids are old enough, get together with them and say, hey, what do we believe in the Thomas household? What is some of our values? What are some of our virtues? Write them down on a board. Have them in front of them so you can say, hey, as a reminder, hey, remember that? Remember this? Remember that virtue? We talked about being honest, right? That's on the board. It was what you just did, honest. That's what we're striving for. So having that creed is so critically important. And then once you do that, you can decide, okay, I want now to create a vision for different areas of my life. Now, there's lots of different aspects of your life. There's your family, your immediate family. There's your extended family. There's you personally, your mental health, your physical health, your career. You could say your job and your intellectual part of yourself. Your experiences that you want to have, achievements. You could put that under each one of those: mental, physical, intellectual, and career. Community aspect of it. What do you want to give back to your community? How do you feel about that? Are you serving? And there could be other areas of your life that you want to mold. So having those in mind, now think about what you want that vision to be. And one of the things that's important to do is detail out as much as possible what you want that vision to be. Make a vision. I've heard folks say, make a vision for 5 years, and then make a vision for 10 years, and then just think about what you want your life to be like. How do you want to feel in your life? How do you want to act? How do you want to respond to situations? So one of the things that that lots of folks will talk about, and I think I've found it useful in my life, is be as detailed as possible in what that vision is like. So if you're like, oh man, I really, 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 really want to own a house, one day, then think about what that's like. Think about what that process would be. Think about what it would be like to be in your house. And as some call this the law of attraction, some call this whatever, but you're just like putting yourself in
The
that
secret.
mode, that mindset. And it can attract that. At the very least, you're putting yourself in that mind state. So be as detailed as possible. Cover the important. These has to do with each of the important aspects or goals in your life. One of the next things I would say is say out loud what your vision is. Maybe tell if you have a spouse, absolutely tell your spouse. You're not going to get very far just going by yourself. They say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And certainly that applies even more than anything with your spouse. Share your visions. Share your goals. How are you going to do anything if it's like, hey, I have a vision that we save $50,000 over the next year so we can do X, Y, and Z investments? And you don't tell her, and then you just expect her, then you're pissed off at your wife all the time for not being on board with the vision you've never told her. I mean, if you're a real man, then you need to be united with your wife in a single cause for your relationship, for your kids, for your household. And so she needs to be involved with that decision making. She's just as important part of the whole situation as you are. You can't go at it alone. We can't sit here and say like, oh man, kids need, dads are so important. Kids needs dads, and then ignore the importance of a mother. So it's the exact same in a relationship. So get on the same page as your spouse, or if you don't have a spouse, maybe just tell a friend, or say it out loud to yourself at the very least, and
write it down.
Write it down. Exactly. Write it down that you're going to be living that. That was actually my next one, is write it down what you want to achieve and the steps to achieve there. That goes back to that quote that if you don't have execution or you don't know the steps to do it, it's just a delusion. And then the last one, so at this point, you've decided what your values are. You've decided what aspects of your life you want to work on. You've created a vision. You've written down those steps to achieve it, and you've told someone about it so people are on board with you. The next step, besides executing those things, is to continually remind yourself of that vision that you have. It's easy to lose it. Continually remind yourself, continually say it out loud, continually sit and think about and feel what it would be like to achieve that. That's why people talk about vision boards. People talk about, because they want to have it somewhere where they'll constantly be reminded of these things. I've got reminders all over my office here of quotes, of pictures, of things that inspire me to do better, or not to do better, but to be great. I'll just say that. Inspire me to be great and to be the dad that I want to be. And so that's how I think one can go about achieving that vision within yourself or within your family. And if you also, like I talked about sharing with your spouse, share it with your kids. If you bring in your kids, just say, hey, kids, this is what we want to do. We want to go on a big vacation, but it's going to cost us much money. And how can we do this, or how can we do that? Or, maybe we can start a family thing where we can all work together to help do that. I don't know. Just lots of ideas how to
get people on board. I think that's definitely, many hands make light work. And I think the more people that are aware of a vision or a goal, it just, if anything, it just creates more accountability for you.
Yeah, and I think that like any good CEO worth his salt is a good visionary, and is able to have that vision for where the company goes. You don't want to work for a CEO that has no vision. So think about that for your own family. Do you want to be the dad that doesn't have any force, it doesn't have any vision about where he wants to take his family? It's like, hey, what do you want to do? How do you want your family to be? Where do you want your family to go? It's like, well, I don't know. You don't want to be that guy. So
yeah, that's great.
Anything you would add to that?
Well, I was gonna share my quote. Actually, I had two quotes again. I'm kind of an overachiever here. The first quote is from Helen Keller, and it was, "The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision."
Yeah.
So, if you have sight, obviously with your eyeballs,
Yeah.
but you don't have a vision, you don't have a vision in life, you don't have even just an expectation of what you want or a goal, or you're just literally, you know, I don't know, not, you're just
You're
kind
just-
of existing, I guess.
Yeah, you're just-
You know, I think that's definitely something that
Yeah, I like
can
that
be,
one.
can be maybe even just disingenuous to those around you.
Yeah. It's a shame. It's a crying shame.
Yeah.
What's your other one?
So, you know, we talked about kind of some of the different aspects of vision. Improving, how can you improve your gift of vision is one of the things that I kind of looked into, right? Some people just don't, you know, and I'm gonna use my wife as an example here. We when we were looking to buy our first house, I think we and I share this with her permission. I'll say that. Okay. But we walked into this house, and it's not the one we actually bought, but this was several years ago. And we walked into the house, and we had talked about kind of like the layout of the house. We liked the layout and everything, but we walked in, and she goes, "Oh, I can't do this color." She's like, "Oh, this color is just gross." And it like ruined the whole house for her. She's like, "Oh, no, this is not the one." And I'm like, "But you can paint the wall." Right? And she just like she couldn't get past like, "Oh, this room, I just hate this color. This is not the house for us."
Yeah.
It's like, well, we could paint it whatever color we want. You know, it's like you gotta have the vision of foreseeing.
She had sight, but she didn't have the vision.
Yeah,
Helen Keller would be
what it
pissed.
could be. Yeah. You know, and she even says sometimes, right, whenever we're looking at properties, or you know, we maybe want to renovate something, and we're like, well, what if we did this and that and the other? And she's like, I just have a hard time envisioning that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, you know, how, and we've even talked about this between us. Well, how can we have better vision? What can we do? And she's really good at graphic design, which is kind of interesting that she struggles with vision from a house, but she's really good at graphic design. And so she actually will go in and she'll like design a wall on, you know, how she on the computer, she'll get all the measurements, everything out. Let's say she wants to do a picture wall. If she's just standing in front of the picture wall, she's like overwhelmed. She's just like, oh, what do I do? Where do I put these pictures? I don't know. But if she sits down and she dedicates some time to it, and she has the different frames on the computer, she can move them around however she wants, and she can, you know. So I think just that's kind of the one first thing is expand your knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. Go above and beyond what you might think you need. You know, from her standpoint, you know, maybe get into a graphic design program or understand that a little bit better would help you to maybe have a better vision when it comes to, you know, homes or whatever else. Developing strategic thinking from kind of Jared and I would say we both kind of think analytically. We try to, you know, weigh out the options and think kind of critically when we're presented with a situation. So I think if you try to break it down into its individual parts, any types of situations, then that's going to help you understand better what it takes to have vision or to overcome a challenge, if that's what it is, or to achieve your goal.
Yeah.
You know, cultivate creativity was one of them. We kind of talked about that. Improving your communication skills. That's what you talked about. Sharing that with others. Tell your story. Tell your kids your story. Get together with your wife and write your story down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've talked about that before. Share your creed. Share your creed with people. Have your kids contribute to the family creed of what how you want to live and act. Building a support network. People that are, you know, getting people on the bus that agree, and be flexible, right? If sometimes visions change, and sometimes you need to kind of recalibrate a little bit and say, yeah, 5 years ago this was my vision, but it's kind of changed. I'm not so much interested in this, or I see this actually a different way now. So be flexible, be willing to change if you need to, be adaptable. And so just a couple extra things I thought were interesting on developing your skills of having vision.
Yeah. That's good. I think the final version of what a vision is, the final it is having a supernatural experience or a dream of someone or something. I would say that these are not too common. I would say that these can be extremely dangerous. I have not a personal, but one person removed from me that had a really bad experience with this. I was living in Utah at the time, and I was working at Goldman Sachs, and there was this gal that sat behind me that we became pretty good friends. We just got to talking, and with a group of people that were just sitting there. And in fact, Shannon and I went out to lunch with her and her husband once or twice, and they're just good people. And she was telling me that her brother, his wife was involved with this lady named Julie Moore, and the lady was saying that she was having these dreams, these visions of that there was going to be a massive earthquake in Utah, and that everybody was gonna have to. It was going to actually destroy all from Salt Lake, all along the Wasatch Front. Was just going to be from Salt Lake all the way down to, Provo or Lehigh, or as far south as it goes. It was just going to destroy everything, and the area is overdue for an earthquake. But the lady had this, vision that the entire United States of America was going to collapse, and the Russians were going to come, and all this crazy, crazy, crazy stuff, and. This gal that I knew, her brother's wife, was way, way into this, to the point where she was like, we need to leave. We can't even be here anymore. And she was like trying, and her husband was like, no, it's fine. Like, it's okay. Like, we're fine. So she was believed it so much that like she was trying to find ways that she could separate herself from her husband. So one time she called the cops, and she said, oh, my husband is abusing me. And you need to come and stop him. So the cops came, and he's just like sitting on the couch watching TV, and they come in and like, hey, we got called from a domestic disturbance. And he's like, what? And they're like, and she's like, and she comes out, she's like, I called you guys, he's been abusing me, or he's been, or something, or he hit the kids or something like that. And the cops come in, they kind of sit down, they're like, what's going on here, man? He's like, my wife is like, she wants to leave like Utah because she thinks this earthquake's gonna hit, and then this guy was telling me that cops started looking around the house, and there were like bubble wrap on everything in the living room. Everything was bubble wrap. There was all the vases, and like there was a couple of different pots of plants, and they had bubble wrap around all of it. And in the kitchen cabinets, she had zip tied every single kitchen cabinet shut, so that the cabinets wouldn't open up and all the
Stuff
dishes would fall out when the earthquake hit. And they're like, what's going on here, man? What's up with all this stuff? And he's like, well, my wife thinks that there's going to be an earthquake. My wife believes that a lady she's friends with has had a vision that there's going to be an earthquake here, and it's going to absolutely destroy the entire Wasatch Front and everybody that lives in this whole area. And so she's earthquake-proofed our house to the extreme. He has to cut a zip tie to literally get a cup out of the cupboard. And they're like, okay. The cops were like, I think we're done here, and they just left. So anyway, that whole thing basically like destroyed his marriage, because this lady got so attached onto what she thought someone was receiving as was a vision,
Yeah.
And I've seen that so many times. I mean, even since
spoiler alert,
it didn't
there
happen.
was no earthquake.
Yeah, there was no earthquake. And just being on YouTube, sometimes I get on like these. I sometimes like in the past I would just find it interesting to see. I remember in 2012, people were doomsdaying. Man, I remember watching this one video.
The Mayan calendar.
Yeah, that was just funny. And there was like a psychic lady, and she was like, I just can't see past December 31st or December 12th, 2012, and I just can't see anything past that, and this is gonna be a horrible date. And then I was like, okay. And then there was this other guy, and this was like midway through Trump's presidency. And he was like, this guy was called Pastor Dana Coverstone. And he was like, oh man, I had this vision that, the Russians were going to invade and the United States was going to declare martial law. And I think this was right around COVID. So everybody was like awful. And this guy was having these visions that he was like claiming. And so obviously that didn't happen. But it's just like so many people claim so many things, especially when it's around supernatural experiences that you cannot prove either way.
Especially when there's a profit to be made.
Well, yeah, or especially when there's money on the line. Especially when there's money on the line. You think about that's why they kind of did away with. Remember we talked about the Salem witch trials. We talked about spectral evidence in the courtroom, where people said that they saw a vision of a ghost. Oh, the ghost came back and told me that this lady was a witch. And that was entered in as evidence during the Salem witch trials. So that's not evidence. You can't use your vision as evidence. And so I think it's that's to say one thing. To be cautious of evidence of visions and what people are saying. But I think on the other hand, I think that sometimes people might have a sense of a vision or foresight. Sometimes there might be like a foresight where I do believe that is possible, where people maybe might be able to see something that has happened, or maybe they have like an intuition that something might happen, or so I think that what
the
precognition,
Minority Report with the precogs.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's another part of a vision that I didn't want to omit in this discussion on vision. Anything you would add to that, Ethan?
No, I think it's. I think for some people it's super powerful. I agree with you in the fact that it can be dangerous because a lot of times it's probably hard to distinguish that and your imagination apart sometimes. I've had some pretty crazy dreams. I mean, I'm not convinced that any of them are going to come to fruition. Some of them would be cool if it did. Others, I really hope they don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely interesting.
So cool. Well, hey, we've talked about a lot of different varieties of vision today, but probably the one that hopefully will stick with you the most is one, to be able to see things how they really are, be able to perceive things. And then two, to create that vision for your family, like we discussed on the bulk of the episode.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, having a vision, I will compare that to, or almost equate it to having a personal creed, something that you want to stand by, live by, the type of person you want to be. Your creed is going to help you to achieve your vision. And so I'm definitely gonna one of the things I took away was to incorporate other people in my visions and kind of get people involved so that number one, I can be held accountable, but number two, we can help each other progress towards our visions.
Yeah.
So we would encourage you to do that as well. And as always, let's build that creed together.
Let's do it. Thanks.